this week's film is Can't Hardly Wait. It's a 1998 teen rom-com written and directed by Deborah Kaplan and Harry Elfont. And here's a quick little summary. School's out, and Preston's longtime crush, Amanda, is finally single after splitting with the high school's football star, Mike, and it is Preston's mission to chase after Amanda and win her over. There's a lot. There's a lot about this movie that we can talk about. So let's dive right into it.
Okay, so this film was quintessential, teen rom-com coming of age. I kind of assumed, like, it was so stereotypical, I kind of assumed, like, that they were going to break some of these stereotypes. Like, it felt like they were setting up to be, like, they were setting up the characters to, be more realistic than what actually occurred. And then it never happened. What was the lead girl, the love interest's name?
Amanda.
That's right. Jeez. Like Amanda, when she blew up at who was the lead guy?
Mike.
Preston. When she blew up at Preston, I was like, okay, that's it. You're right, he was being ridiculous. Like, having it, like, seeing someone eat the same Pop-Tart as you is not a weird, intimate relation, like, moment. Preston is just a weirdo who's been obsessed with this girl for 4 years, and then she did a complete 180 and was like, no, I love you too. It's very strange.
The movie never acknowledges how creepy that is. Like, how creepy Preston is. I don't know if they're trying to go for, like, a parody kind of comedic stereotype of, like, that people in high school, like, fall in love with people and just stay in love with them. But I feel like to fulfill that, it had to be like they wouldn't be together in the end, but they ended up together. They made it like it was realistic. Like, oh, because the reason he started liking her is because she sat next to him in math and ate the same Pop-Tart as him. And he decided to write a love letter to her after never talking to her for 4 years and give it to her, that he was in love with her. And then they ended up together.
Yeah, the film is essentially a parody of itself. Like, it was, I thought it was going to be somehow self-aware and self-reflexive, and then it wasn't even in the slightest bit. Except for Denise. Like, Denise was, at least within the first couple of scenes, she was like, you've never spoken to her before, right? And then it didn't matter. And then she never brought it up again, how ridiculous he was being.
Yeah, and I think what made the movie so mediocre is, like, the fact that it wasn't self-reflexive. Like, if it realized it was making fun of this, maybe it would have been a little more entertaining.
It would have just been a smarter movie, yeah.
Right.
Denise was realistic at first, whereas she was, like, a normal teenager, and she's, like, for, like, better words, calling Preston on his shit, like, you've never talked to her before. What are you doing? But then Denise became really weird as well. Where she's like, ooh, Kenny. Like, she became, I don't know. She just became, like, I feel like she kind of lost her. They tried to give her a character arc, but in the face of it, she actually kind of lost her character.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I know you had something to add, Ethan, but I was just going to say, like, within the first couple of scenes, I thought it was going to be her and Preston ended up together, because, like, Preston would realize how ridiculous he was for lusting over this girl he never talked to for 4 years, and that, Denise had been right by his side, and yeah, it would be stereotypical, but at least the match would make a little more sense, and especially because I think there was that one line where he was like, oh, remember when we went out in, like, 8th grade for a few weeks? Were you that annoying then? And it was like, I think there might have been a rewrite halfway through the movie, and they just were like, okay, fine, whatever, let's go with it. 'Cause I swore that it was going to be them and that ended up together, and then it just made more sense, even if it was still stereotypical. Anyways.
Yeah, I think I went into the movie thinking it was going to be very stereotypical and, like, bad in some ways, and that was just very much met my expectations. Although in the beginning, Denise definitely seemed like she was kind of breaking the stereotype. She seemed kind of like the outcast, but she seemed more normal. But then definitely close to the end, I was like, oh wait, she kind of starts, as I think Ava said, kind of like a backwards character arc, it seems like. But yeah.
Yeah, she becomes ridiculous by the end of the film. Yeah.
And going back to like Preston and Amanda's relationship, like we know nothing about Preston. Like as far as we know, he's just some random guy who saw Amanda outside school in freshman year, and that was love. Like if that wasn't a red flag, I don't know what was. And if I got a note from some random guy named Preston that I'd never met, I wouldn't go looking for him. I'd be like, oh, that's wicked creepy.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna respond to this like at all.
Well, I understand why she initially blew up at him, because he was just like, I love you. I'm in love with you. We had the same Pop-Tart. And she's like, what? Are you out of your mind?
Yeah.
But also, the fact that she was just sitting on the couch and the letter just appeared in front of her, well, that's already like a movie stereotype that it would get to her. But if I was sitting on a couch at a party and there was a letter with my name on it, I'd open it and I'd be like, this is kind of creepy.
Yeah.
This is kind of weird. Like, I'd be a little intrigued, but I would not go looking for that person, realistically.
Yeah, that's another thing about this movie is he told her exactly the same thing that was what was written in the letter. But for some reason, when it was in letter form, that was acceptable and beautiful and romantic. But his declaration was sleazy in some way. And like I get it that she had just had an argument with her ex-boyfriend publicly, but like she was still clutching that letter and acting like it was something beautiful. So I didn't really understand what the difference was, because he literally said the exact same things in both.
They try to make Amanda such a central character that she's like what the movie focuses around, what Preston's whole goal focuses around, but in reality she has no personality. She just exists as an object of his desire.
And it's funny because like the character complains about that, about having no other identity except being her ex's girlfriend, like when she was, and then like the movie continues to do that to her, and not in a way that is self-aware, in just like a not a, I don't know what the right word is, but you know, it just continues to, and non-ironically.
This film is literally trope down to a T. Teen rom-com trope down to a T. And you know, there's all of these like perfect misses that will eventually like reconvene later in the story. Can you stop moving around so much? He's impatient.
He's impatient.
Bart wants to talk.
Give Bart a turn.
Oh, so now you're gonna be shy. I'm gonna put you down to the side. But yeah, no, there are all these like perfect misses, and then all of a sudden everything somehow pieces together in the end, which is just all part of the teen rom-com. This almost feels like a fantastical world at this point. It's like, when would this ever happen in real life? It's all too perfect.
What was kind of interesting was like, I talked about how they could have gone the trope of like, oh, it's been me and my best friend, like we've been in love with each other this whole time. We didn't even realize it. And so I kind of thought like either way the movie would have been crappy, but I thought it was interesting that like they displayed like a heterosexual like relationship, like not heterosexual, but like a man and a woman like being friends without it being like sexual in any way, which is not something that happens a lot in movies. There tends to be, if there's a straight male and there's a straight female, it's like, okay, well, there has to be sexual tension here instead of just like, okay, like, you know, they can be friends. So that was, that to the movie's credit, at least they allowed that to happen. And then also, instead of the guy rushing to the train station or the airport, it was the girl. So there was an inverse on that too. But other than that, all of the tropes are pretty solid. Yeah.
I did appreciate the male-female non-sexual relationship, because that's not represented a lot in movies, and it happens so much in real life that movies always get that wrong. Like there are so many people who are just like of the opposite sex who are friends, and like that's it. And then in movie world, it's like that can't ever happen.
Yeah. It's another thing in teen movies where everybody went to like a super prestigious school for absolutely no reason. Like Denise, she went to NYU, but in her little title card, she had no extracurriculars in high school, which is that's like completely impossible. Like I know this was 1998, but like
Still,
it was probably
not
impossible
possible.
then too. Everyone was going to Harvard and Dartmouth.
UCLA.
Yeah, and UCLA.
Like Kenny's going to UCLA.
Yeah, exactly. That was incredible.
Welcome to Queries, which is our segment on viewing like typically heterosexual films and seeing how different characters are queer coded within them. And so to start off, I think number one queer coded person is Denise, because she has like no interest in men. She's like wants to be different. They like deny the trope of her being in love with her male best friend. So like that's just the start off.
Right, yeah, and she kind of, her aesthetic and her presentation is generally queer coded, or like you would see a girl with like shorter hair, ransoming around a party by herself. Like we would consider that a queer kind of
coded person.
Yeah.
There's nowhere
I
to go.
Obviously style doesn't tell a person's sexuality, but in such a narrow-minded film such as this, if they are trying to queer code, that's where they're going to go about it. And so if we're looking for that, then we do unfortunately have to look in how they present themselves.
You know what's funny? I can't remember any of the other female characters or extras wearing pants. There might have been a few in the background, but she was the only like female character I can think of, or the only prominent one that was wearing pants the whole time. And
No,
like
you're
sure,
right.
like that like helps set her apart and like shows how like quirky and like over it she is. But that definitely is, I think, part of her queer coding, because I think we're also supposed to take from her presentation that she's not wearing makeup, or not a lot, and that's like a stereotype of gay women. Yeah.
I think that Kenny and Denise are like a typical beard couple. For anyone who doesn't know what a beard couple is, it's usually like two queer people of an opposite sex in a heterosexual relationship to cover up the fact that they are queer.
Right. And yeah, like in regards to Kenny, I feel like his character was insanely queer coded.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, there was kind of like this blatant use of the F slur against Kenny. And then, he's checking himself out in the mirror at the party, and then he's got this whole bag full of all these, like, sex pampering items. And, it's almost like he's trying too hard to be perceived as someone who's straight.
Also, I thought that Denise and Kenny getting together was so abrupt and very forced. They were both sitting in the bathroom and he kisses her and they're like, I guess we'll do this now. And then at the end they're like, they both look like sincerely disgusted. And I'm like, I don't know how that isn't queer coded. Because no other teen movie actually does that, where two people are like sincerely disgusted after they have sex.
Yeah, it felt very forced, definitely, because like definitely the whole scenario was got like locked in the bathroom was out of nowhere. Like next thing you know, the door handle falls off. They have no way to get out. I was like, okay, I know exactly what's gonna happen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's another trope where male and female are locked in a room together. I guess there's no other choice now. Yeah, nothing else could possibly happen.
It's like this perfect miss or, perfect matchup between the two. And they somehow, use this backstory of like, Denise was telling Kenny that like he ignored her just to fit in with like the cool kids. And, for whatever reason, that makes this somewhat right because they had a friendship / history in the past. and for whatever reason that's like excusable to have sex with each other, which doesn't make sense to me.
I also wanted to touch on another very queer-coded character who was the main jock bully, Mike. To start off, the way that he dresses is like very stereotypically like very neat, very clean cut, very like worried about his appearance, which if we're going off stereotypes, which this movie is probably buying into, would fit that. Also, the fact that he's trying to get all of his friends to break up with their girlfriends so that they can spend the summer together as friends.
Oh my god, I didn't
Literally
even
the
think
entire
about
movie.
that.
The entire movie, he's like, everybody needs to break up with their girlfriends. I don't want you guys to have girlfriends. It's just us guys. Just the guys.
How did I not even think about that?
And the other three are like, that's kind of weird, and we don't really want to do that. But he is so adamant about it.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I don't know. I acknowledge that happening, and in the sense that Mike was being extremely manipulative, but I didn't even consider the fact that that's a queer coded piece in the movie. And also there is a point in the movie where he does get called the F slur by everyone, when in the beginning he was the one calling people the F slur. So it's like, oh, how the tables have turned. No.
I also especially think in the scene where he is very drunk and he's kind of breaking down and he just hugs William. I think that was kind of a moment of like, it's hard to keep up this act.
Yeah.
And you seem like you'd understand.
Exactly.
I think, to me at least, the most obvious example of queer coding in the movie was one of Williams, the nerd, one of his like little posse members on the roof, the guy with the curly hair and the glasses, who was like, "You're so right, William. You're so smart." Like, I think they like everyone else. They were kind of. I don't know what I don't know what the end goal was with queer coding them, but like him, he was straight out gay without like ever saying it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, he was an interesting side character. That's all.
Also, on a side note, this doesn't really have any relation, but if you've ever heard of like the musical actor George Salazar, he looks exactly like him. Maybe just to finish off the segment, we should talk about Preston and how he immediately thinks that he's in love with a girl that he's never met and holds on to that for 4 years without doing anything about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a little creepy. Kind of funny. Well,
Creepy,
it was funny.
funny.
No, it
a little
was
queer-coded.
It was funny, but it would have been funnier if the movie had like recognized its ridiculousness.
Acknowledged it.
Yeah, acknowledged it, and it didn't, and it was weird.
So the one technical in the film that bothered me the most was the continuity. There were so many continuity mistakes that I noticed that actually kind of bothered me. Like the lighting in that bathroom scene was just, every shot it seemed slightly different. Like it never was no like consistent light source. And there are a few like examples of that throughout the film that like actually bothered me.
Yeah.
They showed like they didn't put much thought into like when they made, or it didn't seem like they put much thought into when they made it.
Like after Kenny and Denise hooked up, like the lighting, I think this was on purpose though. The lighting was all low and dark, but still it was strange.
Well, there was the part where like she's sitting in the tub and he like looks at her and like turns the lighting down. But then
that's
like
right.
I was thinking more of Fork too, especially when he was like,
but then the
when he
lighting
just
still
got his
changes.
whole like pampering kid out. Just like each shot, it wasn't like, it was kind of subtle, but like I definitely noticed that.
Yeah. There were a couple of times where background extras looked directly into camera. It was fun. It was a good time.
Can we talk about their like attempt to try to make it like Ferris Bueller with Preston's breaking the fourth wall sometimes, and it just didn't work.
Yeah, and same with the one moment where Kenny's listening to the two girls talking, and one of them's like, "Oh, I just want to, have sex with one of these guys," and he looks straight into the camera, and that felt very, very Ferris Bueller-y. Yeah.
There's also that scene with William. I think his name's a nerd guy when he's like explaining his whole plan. He's like explaining right to the camera. But I think they're trying to play it off like he's just like talking to himself or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't quite come off like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think some tech piece that's the most notable in the film is how these characters are introduced and how their characters are kind of, resolved at the end. Um, I'm someone who worked on the yearbook committee for 4 years at my high school. I'm 100% that Vicky girl that's like, can you please sign my yearbook? So seeing that yearbook bit with all the activities and the future plans and the quote, that had to be my favorite part, hands down. We weren't forced to, pick up clues about the characters. Like, it was all kind of given to us, which, depending on how you like to view movies, could be a good thing or a bad thing. I found it really positive. I really liked that.
Personally, I thought that was really cool, especially the way they like transitioned into the snapshots, like the little transition sound too. I just thought it was like perfect, like tropey teen movie transitions.
I agreed. Like, I thought it was fun. I thought it was, I don't know, I liked watching it, but I think it's also an easy way for writers to take shortcuts, right? Because they don't have to naturally introduce these aspects of their personalities. Like, here you go, here's like a cute, kitschy way of delivering all this information to you at once. But, I mean, it worked, at least in this kind of movie. But, like, I've never watched Suicide Squad, but I've seen clips of it. But, like, you can't do things like that in, like, a big action motion picture, in a big action movie, because it just comes off as lazy. Like, it doesn't work on the same level as it does in, like, a cheesy teen party movie.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. But I think in, like, this instance particularly,
yeah,
this was like the kind of movie where it did work.
Exactly.
Yeah, it only works within certain genres, I feel. Generally witty rom-com or just like straight up comedy. I'm sure it could work as well. Like, imagine this in like a horror film or something.
Yeah, I think
this doesn't seem like a horror film type thing, except if they put it in like Scary Movie.
Exactly. It has to be like a horror comedy. Yeah.
I think it definitely, honestly, I agree with you guys that it worked, but I also did not like how many, there were so many different plot lines. Like, I had a hard time following all the plot lines. I would totally forget one plot line and then, like, bring it back. And that was one thing that bothered me with the movie. Like, they seemed very separated plot lines. And at the end, they kind of came together, but they never, like, really felt they fully came together.
I totally forgot about Preston and Amanda for a second, because I feel like a lot of the movie was directed at this relationship between Kenny and Denise. And
which came out of nowhere.
Exactly. Which is so weird. And, this summary, all the summaries I read were focused on Preston and Amanda. It's like, well, Kenny and Denise were a big part of this, and, Mike was a big part of this, but there are 3 totally separate storylines.
Yeah.
The one with the band where they like break up and then they get back together.
Yeah. Right. It was that. They're like even the whole the people waiting on the roof thing, like, that was a whole other plot line that was barely explored, except for like a couple of short scenes. Yeah.
Also, one of my favorites, the one where like, like one of Kenny's groupies, I think, would just like go into places and steal stuff, and it would just be in the background of scenes.
Yeah.
Like, he's in the convenience store, he takes it, and then at the end, he just picks up the whole gumball machine and leaves the diner.
Yeah. He's just there. Is he, like, supposed to be, like, a blatant Easter egg or something?
I don't know, but that's my favorite plot line.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's he gonna steal next?
He stole a whole cop car. Like, he could have just walked away, but, like, stealing a cop car, like, he's gonna be put in prison. Like, he's gonna go to jail. Like, his life is ruined now. He stole a cop car. Like, that's not.
He's just vibing. That's just what he does.
Yeah.
His best life.
Don't crush his vibe.
I think federal prison might do that. I don't think he needs me to crush his vibe. Yeah.
Well, I think you already crushed it.
That's if he gets caught, though. He seems like pretty good so far.
I guess. Yeah.
And at the end, when that character goes to steal the gumball machine, I almost thought we were gonna get, like, a freeze frame of him.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
I was
And
so
like
excited.
the summary at the
I
end
was
of like, oh,
so
this
hyped
man
for that.
But
Well,
no, he just leaves.
I thought it was at least gonna follow him, and like we were gonna see like I don't know. I thought he was gonna be something bigger than what he was at that end scene.
But no.
And then, no.
Yeah. He just takes the gumball machine and leaves in the background.
Which is like, I think there's something to be said about doing bits like behind the action. Like that can be fun and funny, but like the camera focused in on him and then completely left him alone and ignored
Yeah.
him.
It wasn't
Like,
even an Easter egg. It was like
Exactly.
blatantly focused on him.
Exactly. Like it would have been, I think, a lot funnier if we just saw him in the background instead of
background.
him being the focus of the shot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there was no follow through. Like we didn't get anything about him as a character.
I think
All right.
we should also talk about camera, particularly camera angle. You know, someone mentioned earlier, before we started talking about like the fridge shot where we see someone looking in the fridge. Ava talked about that. And then the weird transition with the camera spinning into the next scene. A lot of interesting, very funky choices. And I'm trying to think back to like other teen rom-coms I've seen of the time. And do you guys think like these transitions are specific to this genre during this particular decade?
I'm gonna be honest, I haven't watched a lot of teen rom-coms.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I'm unsure. Yeah.
I feel like maybe it's not even restricted to this decade or that particular decade. I feel like that's just something that's very specific to the genre from what I've seen, at least. Always a lot of wacky, weird transitions and edits and camera angles.
I'd say it's more associated with the genre than the decade.
Yeah.
Okay, so next we're gonna do Spot a Clarkie, who of all of the characters, either a main character or someone in the background, do we think would attend Clark University? Yeah, I think we all pretty much agreed flat out that Denise would have gone to Clark if she had not decided on NYU. Yeah, we didn't even have to say her name. We were all just like, we all
Denise.
knew. Denise. Yeah.
The girl with the hair and the yeah.
Denise with like the alternative style, the short hair.
Yeah.
The snarkiness for like modern society and
The-
teen culture. True
Her-
Clarkie.
Her leather coat also, though,
Yes.
that was pretty phenomenal.
That was
kinda
pretty
loved
cool.
it.
That
Yeah.
looks like something that I would wear. And
I
I am in
have
fact a
one.
Clarkie.
I haven't worn it yet.
Look at us.
Yeah, I know.
This might be a hot take, but I feel like William could also be a Clarkie. Like, if
I
for
was
some
thinking
reason
that.
he didn't want to go to, like, an Ivy League school,
Harvard, right?
he would go to
Yeah,
Clark.
he went to Harvard. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can see that.
He's the kind of person who would play D&D in, like, the Dana basement.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see him there and just being like, I don't know, I just pictured that right away.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. $5 Movie Bin, Clark's mediocre movie show, where the movies are mediocre, not us.
There we go.
Let's wave to Bart, our mascot.
This is Bart. You know,
Bart.
if we
We'll be
don't,
seeing more of him if you continue to watch our channel.
yeah, if you like
Yeah.
and
Don't say
subscribe.
it. Please don't say it.
No.
You
I
can't
already
say
said it.
You can't
I
say it.
already said it.
Oh, God.
Like and subscribe.
Oh.
Follow our Instagram, $5 Movie Bin. The link will
Wait,
be
no.
in the description.
Now nobody's gonna follow us,
Stop
but
it.
stay tuned for more Bart content and more mediocre movie content
And we'll
from
see
Four
you.
Clarkies.
Yeah, we'll see you all another time.
Adios.